Welcome, Synergee listeners. We're so happy to have you back. Kelly and I are excited to have a conversation today with Catharine from ENERGYBits. And I want to take a minute to introduce Catharine. And Catharine's journey into health and wellness began when her sister was diagnosed with breast cancer and her oncologist recommended an alkaline diet. During her research, Catharine discovered algae, a highly alkaline and nutrient-dense food that has been a staple in Asia for over 50 years. Amazed by its health benefits, including 64% protein and 40 vitamins and minerals, and endorsed by the UN and NASA, she realized its potential as a sustainable, eco-friendly superfood. Despite its benefits, algae was relatively unknown outside of Asia. Catharine has spent a decade working to mainstream algae, eventually founding ENERGYBits, a national company offering naturally grown, toxin-free, non-GMO algae tablets that provide steady energy and nutrition without chemicals, caffeine, sugar, or processing. So Kelly and I are really excited to be able to talk with Catharine today. I was not able to be here for the podcast recording, so we wanted to do things a little bit differently today and do some interjections in between some of the clips that you're going to hear with the podcast.
Yeah, so Catharine, we met her in Dallas at a biohacking conference a few months ago. And, you know, Lori and I had used spirulina and chlorella in our practices many, many years ago. Mm-hmm. And that product became contaminated and then unavailable in the U.S. in a sustainable source. And so we stopped using it. So when we stumbled upon Catharine's booth, ENERGYBits in Dallas, we were like two little kids in a candy shop. We were so excited that she had lots of samples, right?
Yes,
I think Lori stuffed her pockets just a little bit with
those
samples. And we were taking our ENERGYBits in the morning and our recovery bits at night and just having a good time with it. So we thought it would be great to bring Catharine on the podcast and have her share her journey. I mean, I think we have to give her credit for making ENERGYBits and recovery bits available in the U.S. in a sustainable form that is toxin-free. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, and we want you to walk away from this podcast as excited as we are, because I think what really intrigued us about Catharine when we did get to rub elbows and kind of dig into that research with them as a group there is the fact that they have done something really revolutionary in respect to bringing a clean product that we now are incorporating into our practices back again as a foundational supplement, and it's a food. So hang on. So excited to have you here. Listen in.
Welcome, Synergee listeners. We are so very excited to have Catharine with us today. Lori and I brushed elbows with Catharine at a recent conference in Dallas. We went to the biohacking conference, and we were there just checking things out. And Lori and I were both like kids in a candy shop. We had priorly used algae in our practices, and back 14 years ago, it became unavailable and contaminated. And so we decided not to use it in our practices. And so we stumbled upon ENERGYBits and Catharine at the show. And we're just so excited that she's with us today to share her wisdom and her knowledge. Catharine, tell us your story. Tell us how you got into the business of algae.
Algae, I know. And some people may be familiar with spirulina, maybe not so much with chlorella. Those are the two main algae that we sell at ENERGYBits. But it's quite a specialty. And I'm almost 15 years into this, 15 years of research, and I'm still more dazzled by algae now than I was even 15 years ago. So how did I become an algae? My new moniker is the algae gal, because the gal next door is kind of for everybody, and so is algae is for everybody. And honestly, everybody in the world should be taking both of them for the rest of their lives. So I'm actually Canadian. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, but I mentioned the Canada part because all my education was done there. I did an MBA and a BA in urban planning. But the trigger for me to get into this was my younger sister in Canada 15 years ago developed breast cancer. Now, first of all, I want everyone to know she completely healed. But as she was preparing for her chemotherapy, her oncologist, which is a cancer specialist, told her she needed to change her diet to an alkaline diet because it would be important for her healing. Now, the oncologist did not, which happened to be a woman, fortunately, and women tend to be a little more open to nutrition, Didn't tell her what an alkaline diet was or why specifically it was good for her. So my baby sister called me. Not that I knew anything about nutrition. I was doing international business with my MBA, but I'm a very good researcher. So I said, I'll find out what this stuff is and I'll figure it out for you. And I did. An alkaline diet primarily turned out to be a plant-based diet. And so I think there were two reasons why the oncologist wanted her to do this. One, there has been decades of research showing that the polyphenols and the chlorophylls found in plants build your immune system. And when she was going through chemo, they wanted her to have the strongest immune system possible because it destroys it. Number two, there was a German scientist by the name of Otto Warburg who won a Nobel Prize back in the 30s for discovering that cancer cannot exist in cells that are slightly alkaline. We'll talk about the alkalinity issue later on in the podcast, but the range is from 0 to 14, with 14 being the most alkaline, 0 being the most acidic. And your cells need to be just slightly alkaline, which is 7.1. And when they are slightly alkaline, that indicates there's oxygen in there, that they are healthy, and this will help keep out cancer or frankly any disease from taking hold. So I think this is the other reason why she wanted her to have an alkaline diet. So I did research foods for her, did find her all sorts of plants and nutrients, including algae. And she did go through chemo and she completely healed. And I saw her last week. We celebrate every year being her cancer-free 14 years. But in the process of helping her, I started learning about plant-based nutrition, was dazzled by what I learned. No one was talking about plant-based nutrition 15 years ago. I am very passionate about helping people. I always have been. So I thought, man, somebody has to tell the world about this. I didn't know about functional medicine at the time. So I gave up my 25-year corporate career. I went back to a school called the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, where I got a 1-year health coaching certificate. A little bit of science, a little bit of nutrition, but it gave me enough of a grounding. So I put a program together and I put a curriculum together and I taught plant-based nutrition for a year at corporations and hospitals. I would give my lectures for free. And this is truly what led me to algae, because as I was teaching people the importance of eating more vegetables and plants, I got so much pushback because everyone was telling me, well, my mother's been trying to get me to eat vegetables for a long time. They're hard to digest, or I don't like them. My kids won't eat them. My husband won't eat them. They take too long to cook. I throw most of them out, like lots of reasons why they weren't eating vegetables. So I thought, okay, if I can't get people to eat more vegetables, I need to find something that gives them the nutrition of vegetables without any of the work. So I went back to everything I found for my sister, and I did a deep dive on all the science. And when I got to algae, that's when the miracle happened, because it turns out algae is the most alkaline food in the world. We also, the United Nations has endorsed spirulina algae for 50 years. In 1974, they had a global conference and declared spirulina algae the answer to world hunger. Why? Because spirulina has the highest protein in the world. Ours is 64% protein. So it's endorsed by international agencies, has all this great nutrition, and there are 100,000 studies documenting the nutritional benefits of spirulina and chlorella algae. 100,000. There's about 60,000 on spirulina, about 40,000 on chlorella. So it's science-based. It's also been grown and used daily in Asia for 60 years. It's grown as an agricultural crop. So what you're going to learn today, one of the most important things you'll need to learn, is that spirulina and chlorella, or algae in general, is a food. It is not a supplement. And we grow ours in Taiwan, and you're going to see that these are farms. So spirulina and algae, spirulina and chlorella are algae, and algae is everywhere, but we grow ours in fresh water. This is a spirulina farm. This is a chlorella farm. So it's grown hydroponically, like lettuce and tomatoes. So when you take algae, you are taking food. So now the best part about all of this is that it comes in these tiny little tablets. They're about the size of a baby aspirin. And each one of these tablets has so much nutrition in it that, because we grow it in the fresh water, then we press it into, a powder, and then we dry it into a powder, then we press it into the tablets. So now,
Catharine, let's stop for a minute, because when you say the word algae, what comes to people's mind?
Oh,
right?
I know. They think of pond scum,
Well,
right?
yeah, pond scum, right? Something that we see that we want to get off of us when we're in the ocean. So let's talk about the difference between what we see in the ocean versus
Yes.
you were just talking about how you grow the algae, but I think people need to kind of understand and wrap their head around the difference there too.
Yes, a good point. Thank you. So there's algae is its own food category. You have fruits and you have vegetables, and algae is its own category because it's neither one of those. And there are two main types of algae. One is called macroalgae, and the other one is microalgae. We're talking about microalgae today, but the macroalgae is what you see. It's known as seaweed, dulse, or kelp, and it's the stringy stuff that washes up on shore. It's only in the sea, which is why it's called seaweed. So, and it's now, if it's grown carefully, it's still good for you because it has high fiber, but it has virtually zero nutrition. It also has high iodine, which can be good if you want iodine, not so good if you don't. So that's what you see washing up on shore is seaweed. That's a macroalgae. That's not what we're talking about. Microalgae is called microalgae because it's microscopic in size. You actually can't even see it with your eye. And this is everywhere, not just in the sea. It's in the lakes, the rivers, the streams, the soil, your swimming pool, your aquarium, and as I mentioned, grown hydroponically as an agricultural crop by virtually any company that's selling it. So if you go to Target or Whole Foods or buy it from us, it's still grown, spirulina and chlorella are grown in fresh water. Now, if you see one of those big algae blooms, that's a different type of algae because there's only a few strains of macroalgae, that big seaweed stringy stuff. There's tens of thousands of strains of microalgae. The two main ones are blue-green and green. Now, spirulina is a version of blue-green algae, which is why we package ours in a blue package. And then chlorella is one strain of green algae, which is why we package it in green. So you may go online and read about a blue-green algae strain closing your favorite beach. We're not talking about spirulina. That's just it's like a relative, the bad sheep of the family. It's just another strain of blue-green algae. And the trouble is, algae gets the bum rap because where does algae show up? Or why does it show up? Because there are toxins and bacteria in the water. You can't see the bacteria or toxins, but algae is the cleanup crew.
Right.
It shows up because it kills bacteria and it absorbs the toxins. So number one, you do not want to go near that algae bloom because it's cleaning up and absorbing all those toxins for you. But then, of course, they're very toxic. And you're going to learn it does the same thing in your body, particularly chlorella. It pulls out all heavy metals, all toxins, pesticides, glyphosate, alcohol, lactic acid. But chlorophyll has the highest chlorophyll in the world. We'll talk about that in a minute. Chlorophyll kills bacteria. So it kills bacteria in your mouth, in your skin, in your colon. And this is very important for helping protect you from things like cancer. So number one, algae does exist in the ocean. It's mostly the seaweed, and you still don't want to, get your cup and get a bunch of that either because the ocean is toxic. It's unfortunate, and you never want algae that comes from a lake or an ocean. For a while, there was a company selling out spirulina and chlorella, or spirulina, that was grown in Klamath Lake, but there are scientific papers that prove there are mycotoxins in that lake, as there are in every lake. And of course, algae absorbs whatever's in the water.
Right.
So the mycotoxins get into
So purity algae is a really important topic.
Very important.
So I want to dig into something. I mean, we have so much to talk about just in your intro and your bio, but the idea of keeping the body alkaline. Right. You mentioned
Yes.
plant-based nutrition. Lori and I really focus on a food-first approach in our practices. And to your point, getting people to consume more fruits and vegetables is really key. We want more fruits and vegetables in the diet. We want a lot of diversity in the diet to grow that gut microbiome. So let's talk about the advantages of keeping the body in an alkaline state.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, when we were talking earlier, the new research shows that literally 1 in 2 people are going to get cancer. And so for that alone should be a reason why people should be eating more alkaline foods, or at least introduce algae because it is the most alkaline food in the world. And so it's sort of like it plugs the holes in your boat. It will keep you afloat. So even if you don't like vegetables and you don't have the time to prepare them, if you add algae to your daily routine, you will be getting the alkalinity that will help balance out the acidity from those other processed foods. Sugar, processed foods, the dairy, any kind of gluten foods, those are all acidic. And so you need to balance that out, because if your cells are too acidic, then they are, that indicates there's not enough oxygen in the cell, and that the cell is damaged and also acidic foods and high carbs release more free radicals in the process of generating ATP, which we'll talk about, which is what mitochondria do. So if the alkalinity will improve the performance of the mitochondria. Now, I mentioned earlier that your cells need to be slightly alkaline, which is the 7.1. But what's really interesting is that your blood needs to be even more alkaline. It needs to be 7.34. Our bodies are such a complex, sophisticated piece of equipment.
So we want to pause right here and interject just a little bit as it relates to alkalinity in the body. Why is it so important to have an alkaline environment?
So I think first and foremost that cancer cells and disease, but specifically cancer cells, really, really love an acidic environment. So if we want to reduce overall risk of cancer, we want a more alkaline environment. But in addition to that, I mean, I think there's a lot of other metabolic things, in the body that happen in a negative way when our body is too acidic. I mean, we can talk about osteoporosis, right?
And that's the number one thing that comes to my mind is bone loss, because being acidic is very expensive to the body. Our body's constantly working hard to create alkalinity because that's the desired state. And so we'll use minerals like magnesium and calcium from our bones to create alkalinity. So anything that we can do, and I think foundationally speaking, food comes first, right? So getting our fruits and vegetables in, making sure we're getting adequate water during the day, all of those things have a compounding effect on helping our bodies become alkaline and then stay alkaline.
For sure.
So the reason why, the algae is so important because of the alkalinity issue, your cells, your hemoglobin, which are the red blood cells that hold oxygen inside, which are delivered to your body, the hemoglobin has what's called a negative charge around it, so that they repel one another. And the way I describe this to people is if you've ever had two magnets and you held them up, you can feel how they repel.
Right.
Well, the reason why this is important is because when the red blood cells are repelling one another, they don't clump.
Right.
And so they stay round, and they are able to stay the right size and the right shape, so they can hold the oxygen that is delivered through the blood cells and into the capillaries. But when you have acidic food or too much emotion, acidic emotions, it strips off the negative charge, and now the hemoglobin clumps.
Yeah.
This causes two things to happen. They're so big now, they can't make their way into the tiny capillaries, and they're distorted so that they can't hold the oxygen very well. This has a very limiting and damaging effect to your cells, because when they can't get oxygen, then they become more acidic. So we want to keep your blood in that alkaline state. Now,
so Catharine,
if you are
life hack for patients, right? For measuring alkalinity. One of the simplest things that you can do, guys, is you can get pH strips that you use for your pool. You can get your pH strips anywhere, Amazon. And first thing in the morning, when you're going to the bathroom, urinate on the pH strip and just measure. What is your urinary pH? That is a cheap, inexpensive way to know, are you winning? Are you keeping your body slightly alkaline? You want that about 6.5. So I think that's powerful to see. Is what you're doing enough? Is what you're doing working?
And so the problem, if you're eating this, if you're too acidic, your body's so intelligent, it goes, oop, this is not good. So what it does automatically, it pulls minerals out of your bones, your organs, and neutralizes it, brings it back to that 7.34. However, if that happens over and over and over again, it leads to osteoporosis.
Exactly.
It depresses your immune system. So this is one of the reasons, again, why I believe my young sister's oncologist wanted her to have an alkaline diet, because it would prevent this deterioration and pulling out all these important minerals, because minerals are all your electrolytes, calcium, calcium, magnesium, potassium. And our body is literally an electric machinery. And if you don't have the proper minerals, nothing is working properly. And then you have this negative issue.
So our bodies are incredibly smart, right?
Yes.
As you mentioned, when we're in that the acidic state, our body's working really hard to get us back to alkaline. But it's going to steal it from somewhere. So it's going to steal it from your vital organs, your bone mass. So osteoporosis is a big deal. We start
particularly for women.
Yeah, especially for women as we get a little bit older, we start sacrificing our bone mass to keep our bodies functional day to day. So anything that we can do to decrease our acidity or increase our alkalinity is powerful. So this is an incredible adjunct to the diet and tool to use. Absolutely. So you mentioned energy earlier and the mitochondria. We often hear in our practices, one of the primary reasons people come in is they just don't feel well. They're trying to get themselves better, but from an energetic standpoint, they just can't figure it out. They sleep, but they wake up tired. If they exert themselves, they have any major stress, it tips them over. And so, the mitochondria is something that may not be a household name. We talk about it a lot in our practices, but the mitochondria is the way your body makes energy. It's inside your cells. It's a little powerhouse of energy production. But it's kind of difficult to feed the mitochondria. Not everything gets through to the mitochondria for fuel. So let's talk a little bit about how algae directly impacts mitochondrial function.
Yeah. Well, before we do that, because one algae in particular helps the mitochondria and one algae particularly helps the gut.
Yeah.
So if it's okay, I'd like to make the distinction between the two algae so people can understand them, and then we can dive into the mitochondria, and then we can swing over to the gut.
Yeah.
So the two main algae are spirulina and chlorella. Spirulina is the blue-green algae. Chlorella is the green algae. You can see the colors are slightly different. And the reason why spirulina is called a blue-green algae is because it has two pigments in it. And if you put the spirulina in a bowl or a plate and put some water on it, this is the color that would come out. This color is called phycocyanin, and it has unique healing properties, and we'll talk about those later because it's proven to kill cancer cells, which is, as I mentioned, 1 in 2 people are getting cancer. So this phycocyanin, and you can Google this in cancer treatments later on, but I do want you to see this is the primary pigment in spirulina. It also has chlorophyll. Chlorella has only the green pigment, which is chlorophyll. And the reason I'm also showing you these is because the blue pigment, phycocyanin, is a water-based pigment. This is why it disperses evenly. And chlorophyll is a fat-based pigment. And see how it clumps? It doesn't disperse like its brother over here. And so this is why chlorophyll heals your cell walls, and why spirulina and the phycocyanin heals things like your blood and your mitochondria, because they have different abilities to be absorbed. So spirulina is very much an energizing algae. And the reason why, and that's why we call our spirulina ENERGYBits, because we wanted to make it easy for people to understand what it does. Now, when we talk about energy, it's not a stimulant kind of energy. Stimulants like caffeine, chemicals, or sugar give you a burst of energy because they speed up the molecules, but then you have a crash. Spirulina, so the difference between a stimulant and spirulina, stimulant's like putting paper on a fire. Spirulina is like putting a log on the fire. Very steady energy. You might not even notice it because it's quiet energy. What you will notice is that you just aren't fatigued. You don't have brain fog anymore. And the other great thing about it is it satisfies your hunger. So you could take we recommend 10 spirulina tablets in the morning for people to get out the door. If you can swallow water, boom, in seconds it's down the hatch. No repeat, not like fish oil. If you're an athlete and you want a great workout, we encourage you to take even more. There is no upper limit because, again, spirulina and chlorella are both food. The other cool thing about spirulina, as I mentioned earlier, is it has the highest bioavailability of protein. So your body can't absorb animal protein. It has to break it down into something called amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. And spirulina and chlorella are both what's called complete proteins. They have the 9 your body can't make. There's 18 of the 20 aminos completely. But in animal protein, it can take days for your body to break those aminos down. And so it's not very bioavailable. Collagen powder are in clusters of protein, so they get absorbed faster, but Algae protein are individual aminos, so they get absorbed very quickly, very bioavailable. And spirulina is not even a plant. It's a bacteria, which the reason why that's important to know is because it has no cellulose wall, because we're going to talk about this, why the nutrients get into the mitochondria so quickly. So it's very bioavailable. All that protein, 64% protein, 40 vitamins and minerals, is high essential fatty acids, including omega-3, and loaded with iron, which carries oxygen. So it's very energizing at the cellular level. It's not a stimulant, and it satisfies your hunger. 0 carbs, 0 sugar. So people use it for intermittent fasting. It satisfies their hunger without breaking their fast. So that's spirulina, very energizing, and particularly at the cellular level because of what it does for speeding up and improving the mitochondria and protecting the mitochondria, because they're the ones that generate all the energy for you. So that's so then we have chlorella, which is a wellness algae, and it has that one pigment in it called chlorophyll. Now we call our chlorella ENERGYBits because basically chlorella is a detoxing, healing algae. So you have a recovery from your day, recover from toxins. Now it is a plant, and in fact it has a very hard cell wall. 2 great things to know about that cell wall is that it pulls out toxins, all the heavy metals, lead, mercury, radiation, aluminum, alcohol, lactic acid, and pulls them out. It chelates them, it attaches to them and pulls them out. The other thing about that hard cell wall is it's made of fiber. So it does feed the gut biome, which your good bacteria want the fiber to be healthy. So it does that. Plus it has all these 40 vitamins and minerals that feed your immune system. Most of your immune system is in your gut. And this is where your cells like T cells, B cells, killer cells, which protect you from invaders and identifies them, kills them, and removes them. So chlorella has the nutrients that ensure that can be done. The other cool thing about chlorella is it stimulates what's called peristalsis, which is a fancy word for saying bowel movement. So what you need to have spirulina nourishing your body, but then you have to pull out what I call the junk in your trunk, or this continues to circulate in your body, because if your colon is constipated, and a lot of people are constipated if you're taking medications, if you're traveling, if you are eating a lot of processed foods, you're not eating a lot of vegetables, this is your solution, because not only does it give you the chlorophyll and the phytonutrients that you would have gotten from the vegetables, it stimulates peristalsis. A lot of people eat vegetables for the fiber, but a lot of people have autoimmune, or they have compromised digestive tract. As you get older, you have lessened enzymes. And one of the reasons for the fiber is to help move the bowel movements. This does it for you. Now, we encourage, you could take either algae any time of day, but we encourage you to take the chlorella before bed, because this is when your body goes through a detox repair cycle. And so because chlorella has all these healing properties, it stimulates peristalsis. Also, it has the highest tryptophan in the world, which is a precursor to melatonin. So it helps you get into a deeper sleep. So now you're getting a deeper sleep. It's like having the cleanup crew in there while you're getting your beauty rest. You wake up, you have a nice bowel movement, you're good for the day. Then you go and get your spirulina. So now you're energized and focused, and for only 1 calorie per tablet, by the way. So for 10 calories, you can be out the door and get all the nourishment you need. So I came up with a couple analogies to help people remember the 2 of them. Spirulina gives you so much energy and nourishment in the morning. I thought, and I travel a lot and I stay in hotels, and I thought, well, that's sort of like room service. And then chlorella pulls out all the garbage that you don't want and cleans everything up. And I thought, well, that's like housekeeping at a hotel. So think of spirulina as room service and chlorella as
right.
housekeeping.
It's a good way to remember, the body does so many powerful things while we're sleeping. Sleep is kind of our superpower. So anything that we can do to boost that deep sleep and boost the cleanup that happens with the immune system and with the gut at night while we're sleeping is just magical. So back to the mitochondria. Energy. Everybody wants energy, Catharine.
I know. So just to help people understand how important the mitochondria and what exactly they are, I've come up with this sort of analogy. Think of your body like a new office tower. Now, in the office, in the building, you have offices, and that's where the work gets done, right? And in your body, you have cells, and that's where the work gets done. But in the offices, the thing that allows you to do the work are the lights. If you don't have any lights on, it's too dark and you can't do any work. And in your cells, it's the mitochondria that are the equivalent of the lights. Now, the mitochondria have an extra capability because in the office, the light bulbs, when they go out, the maintenance just come and replace them. But in your body, you don't have maintenance. And so we're going to tell you how to, because so as your light bulbs go out, as you get older, your mitochondria get more and more damage and more of those lights go out. This is why you have less and less energy, because the extra thing that the mitochondria do in the building, you have electricity that allows the lights to come on. In your body, in your cells, the mitochondria are not just the lights. They generate the electricity and are the lights. So when they go out, it's a double whammy. The light bulb goes out and your source of energy also goes out. And so when I talk about cellular energy, we're not talking about just energy to run to the store or have a great workout. This cellular energy propels everything in your body. This is the neurotransmitters in your brain. This is your lymphatic system in your body. This is your heartbeat, your digestion, your bowel movements. Everything is powered by cellular energy. And so as your mitochondria get damaged and decrease, and there's fewer of them, you just have less cellular energy. So nothing works properly. It's like if you had a dinner party, everyone's happy, and then you forgot to get dessert, so you maybe had one leftover cupcake for 10 people. So everybody got a little tiny slice of one cupcake. Nobody's happy because they wanted a full dessert. So let's say you suddenly get 10 cupcakes. Now everybody gets a dessert of their own and everyone's happy. When your mitochondria decrease in quantity and capability, it's like having that one cupcake to share with all of your body parts. Nobody gets enough energy. Nothing is working properly. And what you're going to learn is that your mitochondria, the highest concentration of them are in the cells where the greatest energy needs are. And so when you talk about brain fog, the reason why, and we're going to talk about why spirulina protects your mitochondria, brings it back to life, turns on your light bulbs again, and we'll explain why. But your brain has 2 million mitochondria per cell. So one of the first places that benefit when we improve your mitochondria is your brain, because it has the highest number of mitochondria. So this is where the first place you see some benefits.
That's oftentimes the first place people complain, like brain fog, lack of brain energy. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're done. They have decision fatigue. It's like, don't bring me any more work to do. Don't make me make any more decisions because my brain is done. Yeah. So that's powerful to know how many mitochondria are actually in your brain. And really what's causing that brain fog is lack of brain energy.
Exactly.
And restoring brain energy kind of restores function and the ability to kind of navigate the day in life of an executive, the day in life of a mom. Or a dad. Yeah, trying to just do all the things that we have to do.
Yeah, and it's effortless. And because spirulina is a food and they come in these little tablets, and we sell them in little pouches. When you buy a canister, they come with a little tin inside. This is the little tin I keep showing you. So mom, dad, physicians, professionals, when you're traveling, just pop this tin in your briefcase, your handbag, your gym bag, and just pop a handful every time you're feeling tired, because it's just food. It's like having a snack, but there's no carbs, 1 calorie, 40 vitamins and minerals, 64% protein, and a particular nutrient called superoxide dismutase, also known as SOD, which protects your mitochondria and will help you get that energy boost back in literally seconds. So, maybe minutes.
Yeah, SOD is kind of a buzz in the wellness industry today. So that's like an enzyme that helps protect your mitochondria. So powerful.
Exactly. And spirulina has the highest concentration in the world, but it has to be raw spirulina because, as you mentioned, it's an antioxidant, but it's also an enzyme.
Yeah.
And it will be deactivated by high heat. And all the other algae companies use high heat to dry their algae, which deactivates that superoxide dismutase. So it might have been there, but it's like buying a car with no engine. Doesn't work.
Right.
So you absolutely need to have raw spirulina. So ours is raw, or you could buy frozen or fresh spirulina, but that tastes terrible and expires quickly.
The Synergee Podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.